which is almost impossible, but just in case, we will announce a location for the Eid prayer, but the event for the Eid festival will still be at the park. The program will start at 9:30 a.m. and inshallah we have a lot of activities for that day. With that, I would like to invite Hujjat Islam, Sheikh Muhammad Baig, to come up and address the gathering. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Before we start, inshallah, if you all can move forward, and so that the people who are outside, when they come in, they'll have room to walk in, inshallah. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, ni'mal mawla wa ni'mal nasir. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir la'inir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen Sayyidina wa maulana Abil Qasim Muhammad wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin al-ma'sumin. Let's recite a loud salawats. One of the customs amongst the Arabs, and elsewhere also, but in the Arabs it was a lot, and also we find in our days, in our times also, is that people used to put a lot of trust in fortune tellers and astrologers, people that they think know some secret or some truth or have some hidden knowledge. We see that a lot of times even believers, because of the lack of understanding that they have, instead of relying on the teachings of Allah and Ahlul Bayt, they put their trust in these type of people. These fortune tellers, soothsayers, astrologers, who, for example, look at the stars or look at your stars and look at your horoscope, and they will tell you, what can you expect and what's going to happen to you. And we see that so much, and this is an outcome of ignorance. And when there's an outcome of ignorance and no factual knowledge and no well-grounded knowledge, then people start trusting these sort of things. Now, sometimes if these people turn out to be right or true about something, then their faith grows in them and their trust grows in them, and they start trusting them and they believe in what they're saying and they live their lives according to that. You go to, for example, a Baba or some sort of Waliullah or whatever the case may be. You go to such people who advertise themselves that they will help you and they will solve all your problems and they'll make your unhappiness and sadness go away and they will make your life happy and satisfying. So people are drawn into these sort of gimmicks, and these are tricks and gimmicks and false promises that these people give, and then they will say some general things about you or about your life that everyone goes through, right? And you right away subconsciously start relating your life to the things that the person is saying. For example, you said that you recently had a sad event in your life. Everyone has a sad event in their life, but subconsciously, because we think that it goes back to some experience we had in our life, and right away, yes, it's true, and you're right. I mean, such sort of these false sayings make people believe in them. But when people do believe in such things, they also subscribe to it and they live their lives according to it. It's very important for them. It's very important for them. When they hear, for example, that you are going to become a great leader, then, they will be like, wow, or, some sort of fortune is coming your way. So now they have their eyes open looking for things. And whenever they find something that has that link to what that person said, right away they start believing in that and think that this is the way to my fortune, because that's what this person was speaking about, right? And so, such was the case with when one of the well-known companions of the Prophet was in Yemen. When the Prophet had received his revelation, he was in Yemen, and in Yemen he had met an astrologer that he used to go to all the time. And the astrologer, now because I already mentioned to you that at that time a lot of the knowledge came from jinn and shayateen, and it was a valid knowledge at that moment. So they had news of the coming of the Prophet. They had news of the birth of the Prophet. They had news that the last messenger is coming or he's here. And they have seen the light, they have felt his presence. So now this person goes there, and at the time that the Prophet had the revelation, the first revelation came down and the incident happened where he went and then told his wife and Imam Ali and Zayd, and these people became Muslim. This companion was in Yemen at that time, and he was on a journey there, on a trip there, and he heard from this astrologer that he used to go to and subscribe to, that that the last messenger has come. I have felt his presence. He heard that. He said that if you want to become the leader of the Arabs, then go and follow him. That is going to be your future. You will be the leader of the Arabs. You will lead this nation. Follow him. So he came back 6 months later, and after 6 months, he heard who the Prophet was, because now slowly the news in the grapevine was spreading of who the Prophet is. He was a friend of Hakim ibn Hizam, the cousin of Khadija. He was a friend, very close friend with him. And so he came there, met Hakim, talked to him about some sort of a prophet coming to Makkah. And Hakim said, well, the husband of my cousin, you know him, and he knew him also. He has announced that he is a messenger, he's a prophet from Allah. He said, really? So he went there, seeing that this is the way, the same thing that the astrologer had mentioned, the same thing that he had mentioned, he went there and accepted Islam. 6 months later, his name was Abu Bakr. This is how Abu Bakr became a Muslim. Because the astrologer had said so in Yemen, that if you follow this person, accept it, you will become the leader. And this is going to be your future. And he came with that, knowing that this is going to be the case, and accepted Islam, and then was with the Prophet. And was seeing when will this vision or this prophecy ever come out true. Well, eventually it did. Right? Eventually it did. But the fact is that the way that it is said that Abu Bakr was the third person to accept Islam is false. He wasn't even in Makkah for 6 months. 6 months later he came to Makkah, and that's where he heard about the Prophet announcing his prophethood, and he came there and met him, and that's how he became a Muslim. amongst the obviously early Muslims. He was one of them. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So, many people became Muslim for many reasons, different reasons. Not everyone became Muslim because they saw that Allah is right. Some people became Muslim because they just didn't like anything that happened in Makkah. So they wanted any alternative, anyone. Bring me anything. If you don't like capitalism, let's go with communism, right? Any alternative to whatever you don't like, right? So that was for many reasons. A lot of people who were disillusioned by what's happening in Makkah and the ignorance of Makkah just wanted an alternative. It doesn't mean that they understood the truth of Islam or what Islam represents or who Allah is and who the Prophet is. It doesn't mean that, my friends. And that's the reason when we look at people who will accept Imam al-Zamana, not everyone who goes to the Imam is someone who has the correct reasoning or the right ideology or the right way of understanding or ma'rifat of who the Imam is and what he represents. Many of them will just come because there's so much zulm over there, they just want a savior. And they want this zulm to finish. Their relationship with the Imam is very minimal. Some people who will approach the Imam will have a better understanding of the Imam. They would want to establish justice. And when the justice is established, they are satisfied. They also have an understanding of the Imam, but not the way that it should be. Some people will have a true understanding of the Imam. They have understood that the Imam is a need. He is someone that we need, like we need air to breathe. He's a need for us. And when he will come, they will see him as someone who has fulfilled their need. Their very existence, they see it as in need of the existence and presence of the Imam. You see, many people have different reasons for coming to the Imam. Just like that, many people had different reasons for coming to the Prophet and accepting Islam. If you go, for example, to the prison, you'll see that many people become Muslim for many reasons. Because obviously everyone who's in prison has time to listen and learn, right? But then, am I accepting this because it is the truth from Allah and I understand it? Or am I accepting this to protect myself from the rest of the prisoners? So that I can belong to a group and a clique that others are not going to beat me up. Because they'll know that, hey, I have a group I belong to. Right? So a lot of times, you don't know who's accepting for what reason. But they accept, and no one is rejected. Even if a person accepts and comes to Islam with a very poor reasoning, Allah still accepts him. Allah still brings him in and wants to give him the chance for salvation. Allah doesn't deny anyone. And that's the reason we don't deny anyone. Anyone who comes over here, a lot of people have this thinking that, this person, he only accepted Islam because he just wanted to get married. Or she accepted Islam just because she wanted to get married. The reasoning might be poor, but if they acknowledge and accept it and submit it, that is fine. Allah has given them the chance that by this door you come in, and hopefully when you're in the house, you will learn the rules of the house. You will learn that. But if you don't, well, you know what? We gave you the chance. Allah has given you the chance and all the opportunity. So when someone comes, even with a poor reasoning, it doesn't matter for us. To us as a Muslim ummah, we accept them. Allah, that's His way. He accepts anyone who wants to come, no matter what reason they come in for. He's not going to deny that unless your reasoning is completely sincere and you understand me completely, then you enter. Now this is the wrong way of doing things. A lot of people, this is how they expect, for example, someone who is a new Muslim, someone who's a revert, they expect them to be the best Muslim ever. While when you look at the Muslims themselves, who are already Muslims, you look at them and you see them, where are they heading towards? What's wrong with them? Right? And when a new Muslim comes right away, it's like, you have to pray 5 times a day. And you have to do this and you have to do that. And all of these rules and this and that. And you can't do this, haram, brother, haram. You can't do that. And when you look at the Muslim, they're all doing it. Right? So the fact is that why are you really expecting him to become a pious believer overnight when we haven't done so in our whole lifetime? That's where we need to become realistic and say that, hey, listen, accepting Islam is accepting the fact that there is only one God and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. This is a Muslim and that's it. That's all we think. And this is how we see the Prophet worked. Prophet never judged people on why they became Muslim. He never questioned them. You know what? I'm not sure really if you're really a Muslim or not. He never said that. Otherwise, if he had judged people and according to his knowledge, which is the truthful knowledge, and he has ilmul ghaib and knows the hearts of people, if he had began to judge on that, you'd hardly find any Muslims. You'd hardly find any Muslims there. The only Muslims who would be there are the ones who are there at his bedside. Right? That would be the end result. So hence what happens is that we need to understand how Islam works. How did the Prophet propagate Islam and accept people who came in? That's why when we are here, we don't judge people as to see that, maybe they became Muslim for the wrong reason. It doesn't matter. They became Muslim, now they have the chance to grow from here. And now it's our chance to help them grow. And that's what the Prophet did. Let them come in, and then Allah has given you and opened the door to His house, and now as you're in, we are now going to treat you as family and make you one of us, and we are going to try our best to make you the best that you can be. This is how the Prophet approached people. That's why when you look at those people who came in Islam, he was always inviting and said, let them come in and let them learn. Do not worry about how deep they are, how profound they are, and how great their faith is. It's not going to happen like this. It's going to grow over time through the struggles that they're going to go through. So now, as the Prophet started his propagation and these new Muslims started coming in 3 years' time, 134 Muslims were accumulated, and then he made the open announcement. The open announcement was first in his family. He went there to his family, invited his relatives, as Allah wanted this to be an example for everyone. For everyone, that before you start going to the hawza and start learning and becoming alim and this and that, first start working on your house. But how long? Yes. How long is a whole different situation. No, you don't just work on it your whole life, Well, until my parents and my brothers and sisters and my siblings and all these people are not great Muslims, I'll not go to the hawza. That's not the way to do things. The job is to tell them, to inform them, to let them know. And once you let them know, your job is done. Remember this one really important principle that Allah tells the Prophet. He tells the Prophet this. And this is the Prophet who has been ordained for this job, decreed to be the one to invite people to Islam, to propagate Islam, right? So he tells the Prophet that my messenger, listen to me. You are not the one who turns the hearts of people. You don't make them Muslim. It is I who make them submit. You, the Prophet, are dealing with the people face to face. Remember that. You're dealing with them face to face. I am dealing with the people in their heart. Allah is the one who deals with us, every one of us, and every person in this world in their own self, within their heart. Allah is dealing with them there. So Allah is the one who convinces the heart or who turns it around to bring it to Islam. Not the Prophet, not the Imams, not us. We don't do that. That's one principle to remember. Our job is to give the message of Allah in the best possible manner. The rest is Allah's job. If He wants to change the heart of a person, He's going to change it. And that depends on so many factors that we don't even know how to think about them. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So as soon as he announces it to his family, and in that Imam Ali is chosen as his successor and his representative and his heir. So now the next day, one riwayat, or 3 days later, either of these two, either 3 days later or the next day, in the early morning, the Prophet takes Imam Ali, early morning time, and he goes to the mountain of Safa, which is a small little hill, right? Next to the mountain of Abu Qubais. I told you about Abu Qubais, right? Now in some riwayat it says he went to Abu Qubais, some riwayat, most of the riwayat says Mount Safa, right? He goes on top of the mountain, and then in the morning gives out the emergency call to the people of Makkah and says, Ya Sabaha, Ya Sabaha. Means, oh morning. This is a secret call that the Meccans had devised for themselves in order to let that anyone who has a very important message to give, that the very lives of the people in Makkah depend on that, must go here and make this call so that everyone knows this is an emergency and they come out running. So as he makes this huge shout with a loud voice, he calls out, Ya Sabaha. And people hear it, the news spreads, and they all come out of their houses and gather around there to see the Prophet there. And obviously it's early morning, so they haven't even brushed their teeth yet. So as they come there, and they're like, wiping their eyes, what happened? They're all gathering around there, and as they gather there, they said, what happened? So then the Prophet goes on in his very famous discourse, and he says that, how do you see me? What is your experience with me? Now, he'll be like, you are Amin, you're Sadiq. Everyone is saying together, you are trustworthy, man. You're honest, and we all believe in you. Okay. Then he wants to reiterate that, and he says, he points to the mountain of Abu Qubais that's next to it. He says that if I tell you there's an army behind this mountain, would you believe me? And they say, yes, of course we'll believe you. You have never told a lie in your life. We never heard you lie in your life. So then after that, the Prophet says, all right, so now let me tell you that I have come to give you the message of salvation from Allah. Allah has sent me as a messenger to give you the message. I am the final messenger of Allah, and I have come to give you the message of salvation, the message of freedom, the message of love. And as he says that to the people and announces that to the people, everyone is like, now obviously, they're in a state of shock first and surprised. Because it's an emergency call and all these things. Now, no one wants to say anything because, here's the Prophet, never lied in his life, never did something like that in his life, never pulled a prank in his life, never lied in his life, never would do anything shady in his life. So to them, on one hand, they know the character of the Prophet, that he would never do such a thing if it's not the truth. because his character precedes him. Everyone who's listening are like shocked. They didn't know what to do. Now, Abu Lahab, who has already heard the invitation the day before, he's already heard the invitation the day before, so he's ready for it. As soon as he says that, he just shouts out to the Prophet and says, you wasted our time by calling us out to hear this garbage from you? Says that. And then everyone starts laughing, because Abu Lahab is his uncle, from his family. And he is like, putting him down, calling him there. So, everyone just laughs and spread out and disperse. So now the Prophet had made his open call. Invitation is there. Now, the people who had, in the last 3 years, understood something is going on. They see certain people changed. They know something is going on. They couldn't pinpoint it. Now we're able to pinpoint the source of the changes that they see in their city. Now the Prophet, this open declaration, meant that he has made himself an open target for everyone. Because now people know, oh, so this is the person who's doing these things, or who's confusing our kids, and who's like, making our kids go astray. So they all know that now. From now onwards, the open declaration meant open animosity, open opposition. And this is exactly what we see happening. My friends, from this time onwards, for the Prophet and for the Muslims, now times are going to get tough. As Allah had promised the Prophet, He said it's going to get tough, so you better be patient. And so it happened. The first enemy of the Prophet, the first open enemy of the Prophet, was Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl, the first enemy of the Prophet. So as the Prophet made the open declaration, now he openly came in front of the Kaaba and prayed there. When he prayed there, Abu Lahab, who entered into the Kaaba and entered into the vicinity of the Kaaba, saw the Prophet praying there. Now he knows what's going on now, and he sees that this is a new prayer that the Prophet is formulating. And he sees him praying, and as he's done, he comes to the Prophet in front of everyone, announce it, that if you pray again, if you pray here like this again, I myself will personally break your head. I myself will personally break your head. So it happened the next day that the Prophet was praying in the same place. And Abu Jahl walked in. And now, the Meccans, right, the chiefs of Mecca, they led a very bored life, right? And they were always looking for some action, right? And, they'll be like, looking for a moment, to rouse someone up, to haze someone, to do something to someone, make some action. Lives are boring, we're just sitting over here, right? Nothing is happening, right? They wanted action. Right? So they see the Prophet praying, didn't say anything, they all like sitting over there, wait till Abu Jahl comes, So when Abu Jahl comes, he says, hey, over there. Now Abu Jahl sees that. Now Abu Jahl, someone has already made the challenge, he can't go back on it, because he is one, he has a huge ego, his arrogance, knows no bounds. So this person obviously has to do something now. So, he picks up a rock. He picks up a rock and says, okay, you all watch me. I'm going to go there, break his head, put my foot on his neck, and I'll break his neck with my foot. So he goes there to the Prophet. Comes next to the Prophet. Prophet is praying there without any sort of nervousness or anything. He's like calmly praying there. Complete serenity. Sees that, comes there, raises the rock on his head. And now, somehow the rock got stuck to his neck, and he's trying to throw it. So as he's trying to get that out of his neck, he sees that the rock is not leaving his neck. And then he's like trying to do it, and it's turning and turning. It looked like a new form of a dance. He was doing it, right? So everyone's like looking at him, going like in circles. What's going on with this guy? Right? What's he doing there? They thought that you would be actually doing something, right? There'll be like some bloodshed right now. You're like doing this and doing that. And then, in one riwayat it says that he called out to the Prophet for help. He says, Ya Muhammad, help me. Right? Prophet looked up at Abu Jahl, made a gesture to the rock, and the rock fell off of his hands. As it fell out of his hand, that's it. He started running away. He started running away. And so, this incident, when this happened, you see, people are watching this. They know that Abu Jahl is not, some Tom, Dick, and Harry. He is like one of the chiefs of Makkah. Very powerful man, very influential man, very rich man. In fact, he is such a person in Makkah that if he says something, then no one can challenge it. If he does something, that no one can say anything against it. It once happened that a trader came into Makkah to sell his 3 camels. And this person by the name of Amr ibn Hisham was trying to buy his camels, and Abu Jahl was walking by. He said, how much should these camels be for? Abu Jahl randomly, not even a joke, as a cruel prank, said 50 dirham. Now, the actual worth of the camels was 1,000 each. He says 50, not more than that. So now he says, what are you talking about? So he took Amr ibn Hisham. Amr ibn Hisham said, listen, Abu Jahl said 50, that's it. Right? And this guy, he said, okay, I won't sell it to you, all right? Try to sell it to anyone. This news spread. Abu Jahl said 50. That was the rate of those camels in the market. They will buy the other camel from the other seller for 1,000, but they'll pay him 50. No one wanted to give him money. No one. Because Abu Jahl said so. That's it. Abu Jahl said it. No one can do that. Why? Because Abu Jahl will get upset. He'll get angry. So we don't want him to be angry at us. This is how he was, my friends. This is how strong he was. How influential he was in Makkah. So now, obviously this person, was so upset, that, I owe the people of Makkah, I'm here, and this is how you treat me? And this is so unfair, so unjust on your behalf, this and that. So again, the jokers there around that place, they said, hey, listen, if you want real money for this, go to the friend of Abu Jahl. Right? That's the friend. They pointed to the Prophet. Because they wanted to see, what happens. So, he went there to the Prophet. And he said that, this is what happened with me, this and that. So the Prophet said, all right, come with me. He came there amidst all the people, Abu Jahl also there and this and that. He says, I am buying these 3 camels from him for 1,000 dirham each. I'm doing this. Now, this was an open challenge to Abu Jahl. To him that means like war. Everyone was like expecting, okay, here we go. Here we go. This is it, because they led bored lives, they wanted some action. So they saw Abu Jahl, said, all right, Abu Jahl, come on, go ahead, And Abu Jahl is like looking at him and saying, and he didn't say anything. And the Prophet walked away with him, paid him the money, gave it him, and walked away. And they looked at Abu Jahl and said, what up, yo? We thought that you are something. This person just comes over here, puts it in your face and just walks away, and you're like, nothing? You don't do anything? Abu Jahl is like, you didn't see what I saw. He said, what do you see? He said, I saw 2 spearmen, 2 people with spears pointing them at me, and said that if you say anything, then these are going within you, inside of you. That's it, Abu Jahl was someone, because of these incidents that happened, he was afraid of the Prophet. He was afraid of the Prophet. Sometimes we have to understand this, my friends. He's the first one to oppose the Prophet. Everyone knew that. Abu Jahl is the outspoken opponent of the Prophet. He is the foe. Everyone wanted him to be the rival. This is what happens, my friends. What Allah does is this. And Allah has promised this, that He will protect the believers. from those who oppress them and those who make fun of them, especially those who make fun of them. It's one thing to fight against them, but those who make fun of them, that's a whole different story. Allah is now taking that as a challenge. And that's what you see. They will see these things happening. And really, this is not something like we look at this and we're like, wow, these things used to happen in those days when people used to ride on camels. No, it happens nowadays also when we ride on motorcycles and cars. It happens right now while we fly on planes. Same thing's happening right now. Friends, really, maybe some contemporary history just to tell you what this means. If you remember, those of you who are elder will remember for sure, the kids might not know this. You know, there was an Islamic revolution that happened in Iran in 1979. That was before many of you were born, right? And I was a kid and all of you were there when it happened, right? And remember, that there were a lot of things that happened, talk that happened between the West and Iran, especially America. There were hostages that are being held in Iran. Now, how many of you remember the incident of Tabas? One of you? Only one of you remembers? Okay, 2, 3 of you. Okay, good. 4, 5. All right, good. The elders. I can see the white hair, showing that, right? No hair, right? Showing you that. The rest of you don't know the incident of Tabas. Let me just give you the incident of Tabas so that you can now compare this to what happened to Abu Jahl. You know what the incident of that is? The Americans had sent their elite forces overnight to go and take those hostages and bring them back overnight. Iran was in no position to defend anything. The only ammunition, there was no army, there was no navy then. There was nothing there, right? Nothing organized. It was just a revolution happened. Everything is in chaos. The students who had the hostages were there guarding the premises with pistols, And here goes America's elite team, flies in, makes a rendezvous at a place called Tabas with the latest planes, latest helicopters, everything for the escape. And so this great escape is planned under the watch of Jimmy Carter in 1980, right? And this person, as they made this whole plan in Tabas, they land over there, they rendezvous there, and they just have to go there, get those prisoners out, and it's all over, and it would be a heroic mission, and the cowboys come back home. So what happened? Everything was planned. Iran was in no situation to defend themselves. And you know what happened? They went there, and these latest planes and helicopters were grounded because of a dust storm. A dust storm comes and puts their planes on the ground. And only one plane is working. And they take that one plane and run away. Leave the rest behind. And when they come over here and ask them what happened, what grounded our planes, they said a dust storm. They're like, what? A dust storm grounded your planes just like that? Sometimes, you see, and then, some of the pilots there, the soldiers that were there, they also in their interview said it was like a hand came and, grabbed their airplanes and put it down. And now everyone's like, okay, you know what? These are some creepy things happening here. And you know what? This fear started building up. Abu Jahl had the same fear. He saw things happening. He couldn't explain it. His eyes saw it, but he didn't want to accept it. He didn't want to believe in it. You see, same thing Abu Jahl happened. And now Abu Jahl, really, that's the reason. He was opposed to the Prophet and he was vocal about it. But he's not a person who wants to now openly challenge the Prophet or make fun of him. He will deal with him respectfully. And he will say things to him, maybe sometimes mean, but not anything openly. But there are others who were not as cordial with the Prophet. Yes. There are others who are not as cordial with the Prophet. They used to do all kinds of things to the Prophet. They would have no hesitation in telling the Prophet, making jokes about him. They would actually stand in front of the house of the Prophet to wait him come back, and they will throw crap on him, and they'll spit on him, and they'll walk around with the Prophet just making jokes about him and laughing right there in his ears. These were the 6 jokers. And inshallah, we will see who are these people. Other than Abu Jahl, who are these 6 people who were more of a headache for the Prophet, and that Allah had to deal with them openly. But with Abu Jahl, let me tell you his ending so that we understand it. There's a verse in the Quran that Allah, in Surah Alaq, the first 5 ayat that came, Ikra bismi rabbika, in that same surah, 2 ayat came to prophesize the ending of Abu Jahl. And in that chapter, it is said, Kalla la in lam tantahi lanasfa'an bin nasiya. He says, if this person, Abu Jahl, does not desist from what he's doing, then we will smite his forehead. We'll grab him from the forehead. Nasiyatin kadhibatin khatiya. A lying, sinful forehead. We'll grab him and we'll drag him. Allah says, we'll drag him by his forehead. This Abu Jahl fought in the battle of Badr, was killed there, and as the Muslims were burying the dead bodies of the kuffar, there is one big hole they made for them, burying them there. So they found this one body, didn't want to pick it up because they're tired, so they dragged him by his forehead. They dragged him by his forehead. Of all the bodies, this is the only body they dragged by the forehead, put him into the grave so he can go to hell. This is the ending of Abu Jahl. Look at this. Allah promised us, we will drag you into hell. And everyone saw it, that Abu Jahl was dragged. And everyone had heard these ayat. And when they saw that, they knew, whoa, this has come out true, that he has been dragged into his grave. So this is, my friends, how Allah has taken care of the enemies of Allah. But then we need to learn more about this opposition. This was one person. Many other groups of opposition existed there, and that's what we want to go through, to see who these opposition, where this opposition comes from, and why does it come, and what can we expect when we are trying to do Allah's work. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and keep us on the right path, the wisdom to understand His guidance. Hasten the reappearance of our Imam. Make us His helper when He comes. Wa akhir ad-da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Salawat ala Muhammad. Any question? Yes, brother. Okay, he's asking that, how is it that, for example, when Abu Jahl is trying to hit the Prophet, his hand was stuck, and why when Ibn Muljam struck Imam Ali, his hand was not held? That's the question. The same question Allah has in the Quran, and He doesn't have the question, but He raises that question in the Quran, that if you remember the story of Ibrahim, He threw him in the fire, and Ibrahim was saved. And how big was that fire? Very big. All right. And then, you hear about another incident in the Quran where Musa was burned by a fire. How big was that fire? Very small. A charcoal, right? little charcoal, and in Musa, the baby's hand was burned. So Ibrahim was saved from a big fire. Musa was burned by a small fire. Doesn't mean that Allah likes Ibrahim more than Musa. That has nothing to do with it. What is more important is that what is more beneficial for Allah's cause. What is the will of Allah? What is more beneficial? What's going to happen? So in the case of Ibrahim, it was more important that Ibrahim be saved, even from a big fire. And in the case of Musa, where Pharaoh had doubt about him, it was important that he gets burned so that the doubts of Pharaoh go away. So Allah is protecting His message and His cause. That is Allah's will, where He stops them from doing things or where He lets them do things. It's based on that. And Allah knows His plan more than others. Any other question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Regarding, go back to Abu Jahl, when you said one of the verses came, shows that he's going to be dragged by his forehead, right? And everybody heard that surah, right? So maybe somebody heard the surah and they did it just to...
No, that's not what happened, right? That's the reason. They didn't even know whose body it was. Right? They just dragged it. Of all the bodies, they just dragged it maybe because they were just tired. They're just like, man, come on, these kuffar, And they're just tired and they dragged. This is the only one that they dragged by his hair. Grabbed him by the hair and dragged him by his locks, And, that was it. And then later on, it was said that, oh, this is Abu Jahl. Later on, it was said, oh, it's Abu Jahl, Abu Jahl's body.
When they were dragging, they didn't know who this guy was.
Yes. Now, obviously, his name is Abul Hikam. You know that, right?
Why they called him Jahl?
Because of the Prophet, he renamed him Abu Jahl to be in accordance with his reality. Right? Yes. Yes. Anyone else wants to ask a question? Very good. Alhamdulillah. So, I guess here's something, for request for the parents who have children who are active and run around and, have a lot of energy, right? We really request that if you can really keep an eye on your children while they're outside. Children, obviously they're children and, they love to be up to no good, which is fine because that's just being a child and, you can play around, you have a lot of energy to spend, right? But a lot of times, unfortunately, we are right now incapable of giving them the space to actually spend their energy. Inshallah, with your help, we will come to that position where we'll have our own property. If you all can really look at this in your life as you are living here in LA, and see, if you can get those donations and things that are necessary for us to get our own property so that our children can have space to roam around and spend, and we can truly give them a place where they can be happy with. Right now, we are unable to do that. So that's the reason we would really ask you to keep an eye on the children, especially after we eat. Because once they eat fast and they go outside. And, the adults, they eat later. And so there's a time where they're outside riding things on cars that they shouldn't be riding, right? Listen, there's a drought going on. There's a drought going on, right? Lack of water. There are numerous announcements going on. Don't wash your cars. Keep them dirty. It will help the environment. And the lack of water. So a lot of people are not washing their cars because they are, environmentally conscious, right? So their cars are dirty, right? Now you don't need to write a message on the car, please clean your car, Maybe you haven't heard the news, right? There's a drought, right? And we've been told not to wash cars. and some of us, are avoiding to wash cars just because it's unnecessary right now. Right? And we're keeping up with that. And so that means that, listen, you might see dirty cars, but it's okay right now. When we'll have rains and when we'll have water, then we'll start washing our cars also. And, we just use enough water to brush our teeth and take a shower. Right? But washing a car is unnecessary. That's the reason. Kids, right, that you might see some people have not washed their cars. So please don't write messages on the cars, right? Trying to tell people what to do, So this is for the kids, right? I'm sure kids wrote that. If an adult wrote that, then we'll have some issues here, All right? So this is something, please keep an eye on the kids. Let them know. Let them teach these basic things, and why this is happening. And so what happened is that if you talk to your kids before you come here, you see that they'll have these things in their mind. And it's very helpful when you speak to them. Hey, listen, when you get there, do this, do this, do that. You see, they keep it in mind because you're telling them. You're the parent. Right? If you tell them, it has a huge effect on how they do things here. And if they have to go wild, they'll remember, hey, listen, I can't do that. Right? So please keep that, and alhamdulillah, inshallah, that will help the situation. Yes, sir. All right, the zakat al-fitr right now, I have looked into it. It's about $10. It's $10, right? We'll keep it as that. It might be a little bit less, but I'm doing ihtiyat, caution, just to make sure that you have paid it. Right? If it's $9.25 or $9.31, let's make it 10, right? So I'm keeping it at 10, right? $10, ihtiyat, and that's inshallah, we're going to be best.
How early?
Okay, it can be paid on the night of Eid, on the eve. So, let's say Eid is on Saturday, so Friday night you can give it, right? And it can be paid all the way till Eid prayers. If not, then at least till Dhuhr prayers for sure. Okay? The other thing is that tomorrow night is when we look for the moon. Tomorrow night. So if you all have a chance, you can go ahead and look for the moon, right? At Maghrib time. But calculations say that it is impossible. So if you see something, make sure you see it right. Right? The Saudis, yes, because they have changed the criteria of announcing the first of the month. Because they changed it from the Sharia to something else, so now they will always be different. They will always be different because they changed the standard. But if the standard is hilal, as Allah says it in the Quran, the standard is looking at the moon, is the standard, then according to that standard, it is impossible to see the moon, right? Here, even if you use a telescope, even if you fly in the sky, right, doesn't matter because there's no moon in the sky. You can't see it. The only nearest place that we can see the moon is going to be in South America, right, Chile. No, it's too far away. Too far away for anything. We won't be having. So, as I said, 99.9% the Eid is going to be on Saturday, right? But again, knowing recent history and how, things have been announced and all these things, which I am really not expecting this time because everyone I've spoken to already knows what's going on. So I don't think we are in for any surprises, right? We're in for any surprises. So keep everything for Saturday. We'll announce it for sure tomorrow night. Right, we'll announce it, and inshallah, then it will be done. Okay, then, right? Salawat. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, ya Habib Allah, ya Khair khalq Allah wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah ibn Rasulullah, ya Husayn ayyuha shaheed bi Karbala wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.